What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with my guest, Dean Sluyter. Now, Dean has taught natural meditation throughout the United States since the 1970s, and is the author of several books and audio programs, including Cinema Nirvana, The Zen Commandments, and his latest book, Natural Meditation, a guide to effortless meditative practice. Now, Dean is known for conveying authentic teachings in a form that is practical, accessible, and label-free. Now, while off duty, he is a singer and musician. Dean Sluyter, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Kevin. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you on. Thank you for coming on. This is our third attempt at doing this interview.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
It's great. Yeah, our first attempt, I couldn't make the interview time, which was a shame. The second attempt, obviously, we tried to do it by video. It just didn't work out. So the third attempt, we've gone audio only with yourself, and I think it's working peacefully. So, okay. I did say just to fair there that I'm going to try to do this a different way, and I will. So, very, very briefly, when you were growing up, just to get a bit of background on yourself, was you ever really interested in metaphysical or spiritual subjects, and was there any sort of books that came your way that sort of spurred you into that direction?
As a matter of fact, one of my earliest memories, before I could read and possibly before I could talk, I was maybe 3-4 years old. And I was, I guess I was talking by then, but I was with my mother, and she was visiting a friend of hers, and they were engaged in boring grown-up talk. So I wandered across the living room, and on a coffee table or a bookshelf, I found a book. And I opened it up to some page at random, and there was a picture of a guy sitting cross-legged in meditation pose. And immediately something inside of me said, that's me. As in, not literally, that's, me in a previous incarnation or something, but that's what I'm here to do. There was this, for whatever reason, this instant recognition. And in hindsight, I realized later on that there were a number of experiences like that. I had one time I was going to a drive-in movie with my parents, and I picked up a comic book, and something I saw on the cover of it just triggered this really, what later on I would have called a full-blown Satori experience, just a feeling of complete transcendence, like the top of my head opening up to the silence of the sky and just floating blissfully in that for all the way until I went to sleep that night. The next morning it was gone. And a few things like that happened eventually led me to find the books, to start reading the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, and to find out, these experiences have been around for thousands of years. People have names for them. And most important, they've developed methods for accessing them on a regular basis. So it's not just something that once in a while comes out of the blue, but you can sit down and dip into that every day.
Right. And what would you say? I told you we were going to do this differently. What would you say is your purpose in life right now as well?
My purpose is to keep sinking deeper into that silence myself and integrating it. Most important is that we could say the silent ocean of being that underlies all the waves of doing. First, it's a big discovery to find out that there is this silent ocean underneath all the chaos of the surf, and the waves and the currents. And then the second big discovery is that the waves are really nothing but ocean water sloshing around. So it's all this beingness. Another way to put it is it's all God displaying, manifesting in different ways. So my purpose is to just keep on deepening my own experience of that, number one. And number two, show other people who are interested how easy it is to do that. And that's why the title of my book is Natural Meditation. The big surprise for most people is to find out that meditation is not the matter of gritting your teeth and straining and okay, let's go. But it's, here we are. Just settle into where we already are.
Right. Okay. And when you talk about going into that silence, what's your beliefs then? Well, not your beliefs. What's your truth, should I say? In the sense of consciousness, do you feel that we've come from somewhere? We go back to it, and that's our true nature. That we are a soul in a body having a human experience, or do you even go there?
Well, that's one way to put it. I would not argue with it. That's not exactly the language that I would usually use. All the language, all the words that we can use for these things. And I know this is your business. You're sitting down doing these interviews with people using, various vocabularies. And all the vocabularies have, any words that we use have some, backdoor of possible misinterpretation. So when you say soul, for example, I think for most people, even in a subtle way, that sounds like something, some entity, some little, ghostly puff of vapor or something that is somewhere inside our body. And it's actually my, as you say, not belief, my truth, my experience is that it's simpler than that. That the science, when we use the word I, what does the word I really refer to? We sometimes a lot of the time we kind of, without examining it much, we use the word I to refer to the body. I'm sitting here in the chair. Or we use it to refer to this big collage of thoughts and opinions that we call the mind. We say, I am a liberal, or I am a conservative, I am a Christian or a Buddhist or an atheist, whatever. But if we just take one moment to examine this situation, we see that, we say, I have a body. I have this body that's sitting in the chair now that's, this many years old. I used to have a different body. In fact, I used to have a whole different series of bodies. And yet my sense is that the eye that looked down on my 5-year-old body is still the same eye that's now looking down on my year-old body. My wife tells me I should not tell people how old I am. But it's still the same eye. There's still that same. There's a sense of something which is, so to speak, the silent witness of all our experience, and that is simply awareness.
Okay, but
for lack of a better word, it's present and it's aware, and we can call it a soul if we want.
Yeah,
but
these are just words. But this awareness, as you would personify it as, again, every word's limited. Every word's got some baggage to it. I mean, God, look at the word God. How much baggage that's got to it. It's the undescribable isness that has always been and always will be. When you look in that mirror, as I say on many interviews, like a broken record, when you look in that mirror and you're aware of your awareness, well, what is that awareness behind the awareness? It's almost like it's more than the mind. And yes, it could be the silence. So you're able to tap into this silence, this enormous part of you that's greater than anything that or greater than our current understanding. Yeah.
Yes.
Which holds
greater than any understanding we will ever have. It's what St. Paul called the peace that passes all understanding. So it's not as if, okay, someday, the physicists will find the God particle, or someday we'll turn the one last philosophical corner and we will understand it. Because any understanding is just more thoughts. And it's good that we do this, get our thoughts more and more refined, closer and closer to truth. But ultimately, thoughts are still something that is, as it were, more colors reflected in the mirror of awareness. Awareness itself is the blank, crystal clear, infinitely deep mirror that's infinitely free of anything, even as it reflects everything.
Yeah. Very good, very well put. Absolutely. And you find that by going into this silent, by connecting to this part of yourself, when a crisis occurs, which they do all the time because you're in this reality and it's the only way to sort of shift you sometimes. Then by going into this, you're able to find the peace, find the source of yourself, find the best part of you to help you through this without having to go to no one else except for it. All answers lie within.
Yeah, and more, it's not so much like, an aspirin that you take when headache strikes. It's more and more like a time release capsule. You sit down for a few minutes in the morning or a few minutes in the evening. It's really good to sit down for a few minutes every day, though. And more, that silence is recognized to be there all the time, no matter what's going on. More and more, as you get more and more rooted in the silent ocean of being that underlies all the waves of doing and becoming, whatever happens on the surface, even if it's a tsunami, is dwarfed by the ocean. So that becomes, without having to think about it much or make a big, now I'm going to have a spiritual attitude or an attitude of stoicism or forbearance. It's much simpler and more natural than that. You're rooted in silence and stuff doesn't faze you.
So, how many times a day do you meditate?
I sit down in, what we could call my formal or official meditation, generally once a day. My habit is I get up in the morning, I take a shower, do a little stretching, and then while I'm on the floor, I put a cushion under my butt and sit for a little while. But what I'm finding as I get deeper into this practice over the years, that we could say the informal, unofficial meditations, what happens when you're sitting at the red light in traffic and you might find yourself, tightening your grip on the steering wheel, trying to make that red light turn green faster. And then you realize, wait a minute, this doesn't work. It didn't work the last 1,000 times I tried it. It will never work. I may as well just sit back and relax into the silence while I'm here at the red light. So that's a 30-second meditation. And more that just dots the day, it ventilates the day, and the line between so-called meditation and so-called life, which is a completely artificial line, more and more that line gets erased.
Okay, well, that's a great place. Road rage, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. Most people with road rage would not want to enter into that space or even consider that there's such a space to go into. Yet, it would stop half the pain or more that they do enter themselves into by not just, trying something different, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Fortunately, as the old song goes, it takes two to tango. So even if you can't get the other guy to chill, if you are chill and you are not caught up in reactivity to what, when the other guy, gives you the finger or whatever, then it's okay. And, we can elevate this all the way up to, on the world, it takes two nations to engage in war. If you've got one nation that is saying, wait a minute, maybe there's another way to look at this where we can find our, mutual good here, maybe that can avoid a war.
Well, Christ, I mean, what a world it would be, what a world it could be then.
Yeah.
We always do things as a human being, we always do things the most hardest way, or always the most difficult way when it doesn't have to be that difficult. Now, businesses have started embracing meditation nowadays. I think they trialed some schools over here in Britain with meditation, and it was so successful apparently. The way the kids perform throughout the day. Lots of famous people use meditation, don't they?
Yes. Actually, two great things that you just brought up. Meditation in schools, and I actually have some unique experience with this. Excuse me. For 33 years, I was an English teacher at a really elite independent school in New Jersey, where I was teaching the governor's kids and the kids of the some of the major corporations and so forth, and as well as first, second generation striving immigrant families who were doctors and engineers. So these were great kids. They were really, and a lot of them were headed to the Ivy League schools. And I started an elective English course for 11th and 12th graders called Literature of Enlightenment. So we read Plato's Symposium and the Gospel of Thomas and Jack Kerouac's Dharma Bums and Salinger's Franny and Zooey, one of my books, some haiku, and our lab work, quote unquote, was lots of meditation. And everyone knew my classroom because instead of having straight rows of desk chairs, it had a circle of little couches and easy chairs. And this was every year on Parents' Day, when the parents come on a Saturday to hear you make a presentation about your class, the parents always said, "Oh, I wish I'd had that class when I was 17." And I would say, "Yeah, me too." And so I taught that course for about 30 years. So the alumni of that course are now all over the world. Some of them are running corporations, some are doctors and lawyers. One of them is already retired. He was a hedge fund manager who's now retired, and he flies the Dalai Lama around the world in his private jet. So I saw how meditation for these kids who were, under a lot of pressure, under a lot of stress to get into Harvard and Yale, how this really helped them. Now, at the same time, I would go down the road every Thursday night to, there's a maximum security prison, a Northern State Prison in Newark, New Jersey. And I worked there with prisoners, many of whom could not read or write, had never finished, and taught them exactly the same stuff. And they also, I can tell you very dramatic stories about lives changing that way. And then on up to, as you say, famous people, high achievers. The head of the biggest hedge fund in the world has been practicing meditation since the 70s. A lot of top athletes, the Seattle Seahawks, who went to the Super Bowl last year, they've integrated into their training. The U.S. Marine Corps is starting to use it in their training. So yeah, it's not just a thing for for hippies anymore.
So what can it do throughout your day? How is a person's life that's practicing meditation compared to someone who's not in that space?
Mm-hmm. The simplest way to put it is that you stop suffering. Okay. There's a saying that you've probably heard: pain is mandatory, suffering is optional. Right? The fact that we are in human bodies means that we're on one level, we're all carbon-based organisms, and we're subject to the various aches and pains. Every one of these organisms has to eventually break down and die in 100% of cases. So pain is mandatory. But suffering is optional. And the suffering is the extra sauce that we add to the pain by fixating on it. A beautiful example is when you take your kid to the doctor to get or just when you go to the doctor and you have to get a shot. And you watch people getting a shot. And we don't have the video feed now, so you just have to imagine, when you cringe as the needle is coming and you're going, oh, and perversely, you focus all of your attention on that one tiny little place where the pain is, and you lose touch with the 99.999% of your body, which is pain-free, which is really strange, especially when people say, oh, I can't meditate because I can't concentrate. You're concentrating all your attention on that tiny spot where the pain is. We're all experts on that. Now, in a sense, that's what most people do most of the time in various ways. I mean, you probably know people whose parents have been dead for 10, 20 years, and emotionally they're still fighting with those parents, right? And that's a way of creating suffering. So in large ways and in small ways, as we go through the day, we're creating suffering like that. And everything we experience, all the input, and everything we say and do, all the output, has to get filtered through that suffering, which is completely made up, completely unnecessary. So one simple way to answer the question, what does meditation do for you, is because you're sitting there in the silence for a few minutes or several minutes every day where you let go of that habit of creating suffering, and you find that open space where suffering is not, and you like it. It tastes so good that you more and more become familiar with it, and without having to try or make a big deal about it, more and more you find yourself functioning from that space of silence rather than from the space of suffering.
So whether we've got issues of being lonely, whether we've got issues of monetary problems, whether we've got issues of family problems at the present, or health issues, by doing this daily, and how long would you say you do it for? This daily practice?
It doesn't have to be long. It can be 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that. Even 1 minute a day. You have a person who for 24 hours of the day is completely caught up in all the drama. take the same person completely caught up in the drama for 23 hours and 59 minutes. For 1 minute, they let it go, settle into the silence. That's a big difference.
Oh yeah. And when they let it go, and what is that process of meditating then? What do you normally do? Is it just to close your eyes and see yourself going down a stream, going with the flow in a sense, or is it to see yourself in a field, or is it just to see nothingness and just close and just breathe? Is it just concentrate on the breath?
Okay, first of all, it's very interesting. You just put in the word concentration, which most people will do when the word meditation comes up. They assume that it means concentrating, that it means deliberately trying to keep the attention on one thing and push everything else away. It's like when you're sitting in a noisy restaurant, and you think, okay, I want to enjoy my conversation with my table mates here. We don't go around trying to shush the people at the other 49 tables. You say, how can I enjoy this conversation with all those other conversations going on? I have to concentrate on this one, push all the other ones away. Now, interestingly enough, when we sit in a restaurant, we know how to do that. We know we don't have to push away the other conversations. They're just there in the background and we don't bother about them. But as soon as you say the word meditation, people think, oh, I need a silent place with no noise. I need inner silence. I need to push away all the thoughts. What we do is we just ignore them. They're there like the conversations at the other table. So we don't have to concentrate. It's not a matter of effort. The thing is, when we make effort to still the mind, any effort to create a non-agitated state of mind is itself a form of agitation. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. Any effort to create a non-agitated state of mind is itself a form of agitation. So it's self-defeating. And that's why I meet so many people who say, oh, I tried to meditate, but it was hard. And I say, no. You tried to meditate, and therefore it was hard. So what I show them, which I'm fortunate enough to learn from my own teachers, is that you can start with anything. You can start with the breath, just following the breath in and out. You can start by gazing at the open sky. Let your attention rest. Not concentrate, but rest. Let the attention rest on the open sky. Let it rest on the breath. Rest on a sound like ah, which is the most natural mantra in the world. You know, everyone, no matter what language they speak, when they're letting go, they say, ah. You can start with something like that and use that as kind of an on-ramp for, a few moments or for a little while, and then let go of the on-ramp and then just sit and be. Just sit and leave everything as it is. Thoughts come and go, fine. Sounds come and go, fine. The thing is that the settling down of the mind happens spontaneously. In fact, you'll notice on the cover of my book, Natural Meditation, there's a picture of a feather floating out of the sky.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, right. And that is the model for how natural meditation works. When a feather falls out of the sky, we don't have to push it to the ground. We don't have to drive it. We don't have to manage it. The feather will reach the ground in its own way, in its own time, in 100% of cases because of gravity. Gravity pulls it. We don't have to push it. Now, what is the gravity that attracts the human mind? The gravity is, we could say happiness, we can say peace. These are different words for the same thing. We can say, if we're so inclined, we can say truth, or we can say God. There is something we're always looking for. You know, when you queue up at the ice cream store and you're looking at the menu, what flavor do you want? What you really are looking for on the menu is infinite happiness, nirvana, but it's not on the menu. So you settle for, chocolate or rocky road. That's the story of our lives. We're always doing that in different forms. So because our mind in every moment really is being attracted to that field of infinite peace, infinite happiness, that ocean of being, which all the great teachers, whether it's Socrates or Jesus or the Buddha or Shankaracharya or the Baal Shem Tov, they all say it's within you. In fact, it is you. It's what you truly are. So once we just take one of these on-ramps, just let the mind rest in that sound, or let the mind rest in the in and out of the breath, or let the mind rest in the vision of the open sky. Let the mind rest in something, and then just let it go. And whatever comes up, don't bother about it. Just the mind gets, in its own time, gets pulled without our having to push it. It gets pulled into that just resting in beingness.
Okay, so if I was to do this, just so I got this right, it's almost like not concentrating, sorry, but it's almost like resting. So what if I go to sleep when doing it?
Then you're in great big trouble, mister. No, then fine. Then that means you needed some sleep. God bless. Then you wake up. All these things that people think are taboo. I tried to meditate, but I fell asleep. I tried to meditate, but my nose itched and it was torture because I knew you're not supposed to move. You're not supposed to scratch your nose. Who said so? Who said so? People, they see these stone Buddhas sitting on people's altars or in their gardens, and they think, I have to sit like a stone Buddha. But, that's just the stone one. The real flesh and blood Buddha, I guarantee you, he scratched his nose when it itched.
Okay, so are you just then to get into this meditative state? It's just to get into the silence, that greater part of yourself. It's just really just. I'm closing my eyes while I'm talking to you, doing this. It's really just to flow with whatever comes into you, but without concentrating on any thoughts or any issues. It's really just to empty out, really, and not think.
Yeah. And not even empty out, because again, that's a form of doing.
So how do you not do then?
It's leaving things as they are. It's resting as awareness, which actually you already are. The word I that we may have thought, we may have used the word I to refer to the body or to the mind, turns out really to refer to this silent awareness, which is the witness of the body, the witness of the mind. You are that right now. So it's a matter of, you already are, we could say, that ocean on the surface of which all the waves and the currents of thinking and doing and hearing and seeing, they come and go, and you let them come and go and remain as you are. And it's helpful, especially in the early stages, to have someone else narrating you through it. Have someone as the designated driver so you can relax in the passenger seat. Someone reminding you that there's nothing to do. And in fact, if people care to visit my website, which is deanwords.com, I've got links there to a couple of guided meditation audios, which they can stream for free, and actually just be walked through the meditation. And you do that a few times with someone else driving, and then you see how simple it is.
Okay, I'm going to link those at the bottom of this video, because that's really important. I think that if you've got those guided meditations there, so we shall put those links there. Thank you for that.
Good.
It's not a straight road, this stuff. So it takes it's like anything, is it? You got to practice and practice.
Well, people say practice long and hard. I say practice long and easy. Absolutely practice in the sense, sit down and, put your butt on the cushion or the chair or the couch, ideally every day. But practice in the sense of like practicing the violin. I'm going to work at this. I'm going to hone my skills. It can seem like that at first. It can seem as if there's a skill that you need to hone. More and more, what you find out is it's really abandoning the notion that there's any skill you have to develop, that it's anything other than what you are right now. that it's anything you're going to build up or achieve or construct. It's, getting out of the construction business and just resting in what you were all along. And all the great teachers say that. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you, right? He didn't say the kingdom of heaven can be within you someday if you really work at it or if you're really good. It is within you.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think you're able to go to that space that you're going to? Have you ever tried asking a question within that space, to that space, and seeing what comes back in your own voice?
That's not my style, that's not, because when you start, once you do that, you're introducing activity and intentionality, and you're bringing in some wave activity again, when the whole point of this is to settle into the ocean. Now, ultimately, I mean, I understand what you're asking, and there, I think there is, in a sense, that's what you do the other 23 hours of the day. The other 23 hours of the day when I'm being active, I'm asking questions all the time. I'm writing my next book. I'm dealing with family members. I'm dealing with students. I'm dealing with travel arrangements. I'm asking questions. And more, and this is really the point of the practice, more and more, you're coming from that, you're acting, thinking, speaking from that silence all the time. So without making a big deal about it, every question that you ask, you're responding from the silence. But during the time of meditation,
okay,
it's you just let everything settle.
I just wondered, or if that silence that you connect with, that greater part of yourself, has answers that you're looking for any issues that you might be going through, that we don't always listen to that part. We're not listening to that part all the time. We're listening to the mind rather than the silence or the subconscious.
Yeah. And the thing is, it becomes more and more clear. And I talk about this in the book, how as we continue to practice, and as the attunement to that silence, the integration, or rather the recognition that silence is what we've been all along, and that it's there. It's what the Buddhists call the one flavor, that one flavor that really runs through all our diverse experience, that it's there everywhere we go. So everything is coming from that silence rather than being filtered through all the neurosis and all the self-created suffering that we talked about before.
Yeah.
So the answers are clearer. It's like, my favorite place to see this is in sports. We've got the Olympics going on right now. And when you see just something beautiful happen in sport, last night my wife and I were watching Simone Biles doing her just sublimely beautiful gymnastics. And you can't get to something like that by thinking about it. you just someone like that, or think of when you listen to the great jazz musicians playing. I play a little bit of music, and a jazz teacher I was studying with said, I asked him, well, what's the secret of improvisation in jazz? And he said, well, you think of something and then don't do that. Okay. You think of something and then don't do that. So what that leaves you with, of course, is that space of silence and freshness and spontaneity. And more, it's like there's a slot. You can feel where the clarity is. There's an old story, an old Taoist story that you've probably heard about he's some kind of ruler. He's a duke or something, and he hears about this wonderful cook who works in his kitchen, who has not had to get a new cleaver in 20 years or something. And most cooks have to replace their cleaver every, a couple of times a year. This guy's cleaver never gets dull. So the duke goes down to the kitchen to see how this guy does it. He says, doesn't it get dull from hacking into the cow's bones? And the cook says, no, here, watch. This is what I do. I just run the cleaver through the space between the bones. And then the cow just falls apart. So that's what happens to our action. More and more, whatever we're doing, dealing with people, dealing with situations, we see that space between the bones where we're not running up against things, where it becomes more and more obvious how to do things in a way that's just fluid and natural and works out nicely for everyone involved. And more you can see other people doing it wrong, other people trying to hack into the bones all the time.
Yeah.
And you take instruction from that. You go, don't do that.
No, most definitely. And what makes your book different to other meditation books out there, do you think? Obviously, you're different. It's you that's that's throughout the book.
Yep. Well, since this book came out last year, I've gotten emails from people all over the US and England and Australia and parts of Europe telling me that, the key thing is that I really show them in the book how effortless meditation really is, how really anyone can do it. And, I'm obviously very pleased to find out, because I know anytime I sit down in a room full of people, I can share with them the effortlessness of meditation. And, they open their eyes at the end of a session and they go, oh, wow. Yeah, thank you. And to find out that the book could really convey that. And the other thing that I hear from people a lot is they enjoy the style of my writing, that the tone is conversational. They say, this is just like sitting in a room with you. It's just, it's in plain English. And I call on all the great traditions. I have, deep respect and gratitude for the great traditions of Advaita Vedanta and Vajrayana Buddhism and Dzogchen and these various traditions that I've been fortunate enough to be schooled in, but I'm not kind of, caught up in any traditional language. I try to just put it all in, plain American English as best I can. And also, I love movies and I love pop songs. I actually wrote one book called Cinema Nirvana, where I extract the accidental Enlightenment teachings in films like Jaws and The Godfather and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, it's important to me to point out that if universal truth is really universal, it's not only going to be found in ancient scriptures. It's also going to be found in every movie, every pop song lyric.
Yeah, that's true, and
it's more fun that way.
It is, yeah, it is, and we've spoke about crisis as well. That's when sometimes people will get into meditation after a crisis or during that moment of crisis, right. Or the pain's just so much in their life that they just want something different. Yeah,
right.
Before we get into crisis, actually, one thing I said in the previous interview, that when we first tried to tape this, was, some people say, they just can't make the time, that they're too busy to meditate, or they'll make themselves too busy. That is an issue as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. They make themselves too busy. They distract themselves. And the real reason, the deep reason, is that people are afraid of the silence. That's the real reason. Just between you and me and however many people are listening to this. They're afraid of what they think will happen in the silence. They're afraid of losing their old identity. Even though their old identity has brought them suffering, has brought them crisis, they have some sense of, I know, and they probably haven't articulated it in so many words, but they have a sense, okay, I'm this person, it's like, I'm rolling in the mud, but it's mud that I know. So they'll make up excuse. That's one reason that people don't meditate and don't take the time. The other is that much and maybe most instruction in meditation is given in terms of effort, trying to concentrate, and that's painful and it's unnatural. And people are right to quit that kind of method. My meditation, career in formal meditation, I began as a Zen student, where you had to sit in completely motionless, and you're supposed to concentrate your mind and push away thoughts. And I failed miserably. I had to drop out after about 3 days. And that was a very fortunate thing, because that forced me to find other teachers, to find that there are teachers plugged into, very, venerable traditions that say, no, that's unnatural, and that's the long way. The short way is this just letting it happen like a feather floating out of the sky.
Yes, yeah, that was a bit of a moment there you gave me, in the sense that we don't want to change. We're
Right.
happy with the suffering. I mean, I think that's
Right.
kind of what you're saying there, and I think that's probably true.
Hmm. Yeah, we're not really happy with it, but it's what we know.
Addicted.
And I read the other day a quote from someone who said, what we say that we're afraid of the unknown, but we can't really be afraid of the unknown. We don't know what it is. It's unknown. We're afraid of losing the known.
Okay, this is it. Yeah, because your next book is all based on fear. You're just writing the book now.
It's about fear,
yeah,
yes, and the transcendence of fear,
yeah.
going beyond fear.
Now, I hope you're okay to talk about this, but I know that you was with your previous wife for 25 years before cancer took her, and
Yes.
now I believe she was into meditation as well. I believe she was.
Absolutely,
Yep.
yes.
And
In fact,
yep.
I met my first wife, and I later met my second wife, both on meditation retreats.
Both on meditation. God, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which, by the way, in my experience, is a much better way to meet likely people than going to bars.
Yes, you are right there. You're so right there.
It worked for me.
Yeah,
It worked for me twice.
Yeah. As in that, when you meet people in this from the same space, then
Yes.
then it's absolutely. How
I often say that the conclusive evidence that men are idiots is that they look for women in bars instead of in yoga classes.
No, that is true. It's true. This is true. This work, it changes you from where you meet people as well, as you are proof of. But let me, when you went through such a tough bloody crisis as losing the love of your life, in a sense,
Yes.
through having to see her destroyed by cancer. I hope I'm not making
Yes.
it sound worse than it was, right? But I know people that have passed from cancer. I know what it's like. It's
Right. Right.
So how did meditation help you get through that, to give you, because it goes beyond faith to say, well, my
Yes.
faith is that she will have crossed over and she will be be continuing on the other side, because events like this can shake people's faith and they can lose it, in a sense, as well. That's how good
Right.
faith is.
Yes, and I've seen that happen. I've seen people who, I had a friend years ago who was very devout, went to mass every Sunday and so forth, and she had a younger brother who was a wonderful athlete and had all these offers for full athletic scholarships to top colleges. And just before going off to college, he was in a terrible car crash and was paralyzed from the neck down. And she stopped going to church. She said, I just can't understand how God could allow that to happen to my brother. Now, and of course, I said, the most sympathetic words I could. At the same time, there was, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, isn't it interesting that every day you were able to open a newspaper and read about, even the same kinds of things and worse things happening to other people all over the world, and you didn't have a problem with God visiting that fate on other people. It's kind of cold to put it that way, but this is the way people's minds work often. So yeah, it's not just a matter of faith. So when Maggie, my first wife, got sick with cancer, and went through chemo and went through all of that, and there more than once she looked at me and she would say, how do people who don't meditate get through this kind of thing? And I shrugged. I said, I don't know. I don't know. Drink heavily. I don't know. So well, I'll tell you one thing. She would go in for chemo. And, when you're getting chemotherapy, you have to just sit there. So that's called meditation. So she would sit there and she would meditate. And she was so poised and balanced and funny and graceful through the whole thing that the doctors and the nurses and the technicians were so impressed with that, they brought her back and they had her teach meditation to the whole oncology unit.
Oh my gosh, wow, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to, losing someone, no matter what truth that you have, it doesn't make it any easier sometimes. Yes, it helps you make sense of it, maybe, but it does not take away the pain, does it? That's the thing. Did meditation help take away your pain?
It doesn't away the suffering.
The suffering, yeah, because you need to go through that, don't you? I mean, meditation is not going to take that away.
No, but as a matter of fact, I wrote a piece about this, which people can find. There's a link to it on my website. A piece I wrote for the Huffington Post called "Lord Shiva Kicks Ass," and some people. So it's a short piece. It's 1,000 words or something. And some people have told me that it's the best 1,000 words I've written. That they've found it really helpful. Lord Shiva in the tradition of Hindu archetypes, of course, is the god of destruction. He's the embodiment of the fact that, as George Harrison sang, all things must pass. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with the death of loved ones? And in fact, Lord Shiva is also the Lord of liberation. So there's a very profound teaching there that there's a connection between loss and liberation, between destruction and liberation. The bud must be destroyed for the flower to come forth. The shell must be destroyed for the chick to be born. And every in our lives is giving way to the birth of something else. If we allow ourselves to see that, if we just completely fixate on the loss of the old, then once again, we are creating suffering. And there was one moment when, during Maggie's illness, one moment when I just started to lose it. And really, she was my teacher through that whole process. She was my great, great teacher. And this was really one of the whole process of going through her illness and her dying was one of the very great teachings of my life.
Okay, now that makes sense. You can see it from that perspective that she was one of your greatest teachers. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And the key moment was when I started to lose it one time, and I just, we were in the hospital. I was sitting on the bed with her there, and I said, "Oh, Maggie, I just wish that." And she said, "Stop right there." She said, "You're just going to create suffering for both of us." And I said, "Okay."
God. Why does our greatest teachers have to go through that particular, through cancer to have to teach us that? I mean, God, it's just, why does it have to be that way? But then again, it just had to, and no other way would have got through to you, maybe, this was the one way, but it's so easy for me sat here thousands of miles away to say these words to you. I wasn't the bloody one going through it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. But you know what? We all get our turn.
Yeah.
We all get our turn at the bottom of the wheel one time or another, one way or another.
That's true, brother. One way or another, whether it's through something like you had to go through or something totally opposite, like a relationship breakdown or many.
Right. Right.
it's pain and it's our own personal pain, and it still hurts as much in some respects, but
Yeah. And I, I've seen people, and I've had close friends deal with, alcoholism. I've seen friends commit suicide. I mean, this is the world. These things happen. And since we're speaking of the Hindu archetypes, in many of when you see the representations of Lord Shiva or Lord Ganesh, the elephant-headed god, and these are all of course it's not. It doesn't mean you expect a guy with an elephant's head to walk in the door. These are artistic, symbolic representations of that which cannot be represented, which is the nature of this awakening that we experience. So when you see, let's say, Lord Ganesh, and he's got 4 arms, and each of his hands is doing something interesting, and one of the hands is in the gesture with the palm outstretched facing the viewer, okay, holding the hand up, and that is the gesture that means everything's okay. Be at peace. Whatever else is going on here, all these circles of creation and cycles of creation and destruction and suffering and letting go and being born and dying, and in the middle of all that is that palm facing you saying, here is the silent hub in the middle of all those circles. All is silence, all is well. And that really, and there is something, even just intellectually, even just hearing sometimes words like that, or seeing it represented in a work of art like that gives us some sense of, some intuitive sense of that peace in the middle of all things. But then more and more, just settling into that every day, ideally for 1 minute or 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just settling into that, and more finding it all the time. It becomes a living experience, not just an idea, not just an attitude.
No, and if someone's thinking, well, how do I know it's working? I'm doing it, but how do I know it's working? Well, is that the piece that you project onto yourself when you know it's working? That the piece you find when situations are difficult, you're approaching them differently. You're seeing it with different eyes.
Yes. And the thing is, I mean, again, it's a great question, because since it's a natural, organic process, not the kind of flashy, dramatic stuff that people are often looking for or think they're looking for, because it's a natural, organic process, it tends to kind of creep up on you, like a child growing. You don't see the child shooting up from day to day, but one day you put his old sweater on him and, the sleeve is halfway up to the elbow. In the same way, you might have a challenging day. There's a big crisis at work. Your spouse is upset about this or that. The toilet is backed up, and your dog dies. And at the end of the day, you find yourself sitting on the edge of the bed, taking your socks off, and you realize, you know what? I was really cool through all of that. It all got taken care of in a very smooth way. I really handled things well. And somehow I feel as if I didn't do anything, as if it all just kind of happened through me. And life becomes more and more like that. And a shorthand way of saying that is you stop suffering.
Yeah, and we could all do with some of that, and that's why I think it's so important to get someone like yourself on, because I think meditation is a key to building a better you. And I mean, there's other things we can do, like law of attraction and other things to bring things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not starting at the foundation, which is this is what this is all about, then how can you build something that's going to last on them?
Yes, and I just want to change one word that you said. It's not building a better you. It's finding the true you that you were all along, which. And by the way, then when you do that, I'm just saying, you don't have to attract anything.
No.
Because you're it, brother.
Well, yeah, well,
You're it.
you are. But when I mention law of attraction, what I'm saying there is in the sense that what law of attraction does for me is it helps me to remind me that what I have in my life now is the vibration I'm putting out. So change my vibration, change the way I'm thinking, and say if I want something like a camera, well, I already have it. It's not like I want it. I have it, and I manifest it to
Right.
myself, and I take action along the way to bring that to me as well. I just think that
Yeah.
meditation, let me change what I said then, helps you re-remember who you are.
Yeah. I like that. And I think one really good point that you implied there is that the in a very straightforward, non-mysterious way, our environment, including, in particular, the people that we deal with, respond to us pretty much in the same way that in terms of what we're putting out. So I mean, don't you know people who keep telling you about how people keep treating them so badly? Or don't you know people who one of my Buddhist teachers put it this way. He said, people tell me about every relationship I wind up in, it winds up, with this and that terrible thing happening. And the teacher said, and I asked him, well, what's the one thing that all those relationships have in common? It's you.
That's so true, man. That's so true. And maybe that's why these things show up to help us to learn to heal that part of us. Not that some of us want to heal it, but sometimes life forces it down your throat to heal it. Or maybe you do. You do it to yourself. If you take self-responsibility, which meditation helps you do, get into that finer part of yourself, you really...
And a lot of it is as simple as just seeing what doesn't work. Again, this is why we don't have to build anything up. We just have to, there's an old joke, where the guy goes to the doctor, he says, "Doctor, it hurts when I go like this." And the doctor says, "Don't go like that." We keep doing that thing. And then, if we can just get a little more clarity to realize you're doing it. Don't do like that.
Yeah, that and what meditation helps us to remind us is just how powerful we are. When you enter that space of silence, that power can be used for your greatest good, to be the new you, to re-remember that who you are, and what you're able to direct the life the way you want it, because you're in touch with that power. And it starts with meditation with any practice. I always believe that. I really do.
Yep.
Without that, then how can you move on to anything else? My truth is.
Yep.
I feel like we left a few things out here, but we are out of time. We're 1 hour in right now. What would you say is the most important message of your work?
I ride through the streets of Santa Monica on a Vespa motor scooter, which is really fun, and you can do it 12 months of the year here. And for the first time in my life, I got a what we call here a vanity plate. It's a custom license plate where you can put your own message on it. And what I have on my plate is, so this is the message I'm spreading through the streets as I ride around, is you be it. You be it, right? It's like, tag, you're it. You keep looking for it somewhere else. It's like, oh, the next promotion at work, the next relationship, the next ice cream cone, the next orgasm, the next philosophical insight, that'll be it. Then, but no, you be it. You are it. And you're never going to find it, because it is the one that's been trying to find it all along. And if you just allow yourself to marinate in that, you go, here we are. All is well.
I love that. All is well. Absolutely it is. Well. Okay. Well, just one reminder of your website again for those listening on the audio version.
Yes, it's deanwords.com.
Excellent. Okay, well, we've been putting your books and your website on the screen for those watching as well. And I'd just like to say, Dean Sluyter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin. Anytime.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on our past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.